Welcome to our new series, Packaged with Purpose. Today, we're diving into what sustainable packaging really means, moving beyond buzzwords to how you can seriously impact the planet in a positive way. I'm joined by Jeremy Bauer of Givr Packaging. Jeremy, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, good to have good to speak with you today.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time, man. I know you're a busy man. So let's start with the basics because the show is really for people that want to learn more about sustainable packaging who are on this journey. We have, the experts listen, but it's not really per se for the experts. It's to give everyone the fundamentals. So let's start high level. How do you define sustainability? Is it more about recyclability, compostability, circularity? There's a million ways to look at it. How do you personally look at sustainability?
I actually hate that word sustainability, but it is what everybody talks about.
You're on their own podcast, maybe not.
The term is what I find problematic for all of the reasons you stated.
Okay.
Because what does it mean, right? To me, sustainability means like if all of humanity stopped right now, are the remnants of what we produce or sell going to be here forever? Are they going to be here for a year? So sustainability to me is really about, are we having an impact that is positive, neutral, or negative on the planet without any intervention of any kind?
Got it.
And I get into arguments with people about this because they're like, well, if you look at the carbon footprint of whatever high density polyethylene, you can say it's better than this or that. Plastic doesn't kill any trees. So I am open to argue any angle of this, but in my perspective, if you're taking paper, loose foam, any of the products we'll talk about today, in a year from now, are you going to see the remnants of those products laying on the ground? Unlikely in a normal environment. Plastic, you will. EPS foam, you will. So to me, that is sustainability. That is sustainable. Although again, there are arguments around that term in every direction.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it's also driven by the company, right? So the plastics company comes very strong with this opinion of low emissions because they're selling plastic. And
right,
I don't criticize anyone. Everyone needs to sell a product and make money and make a living. But I think that's partially where the different angles for sustainability come from. And then also there's the objectively really trying to figure out what's best for the planet, which I think we'll get into today. So give us a quick background on Givr Packaging. Specifically, I'm curious to learn what the first sustainable packaging option that you guys brought to market was, but just a high-level overview as well of the company.
Yeah, so I think we should probably start with where I came from. I was an engineer in the paper industry for a number of years. I graduated with a degree in paper science and was a project or a process engineer for paper mills and industrial enzyme company. And I got recruited into the box industry by a company that was making wax replacement boxes. So, historically paraffin wax is used on boxes and those cannot be recycled. They have to be burned or landfilled, and all of that fiber gets sunk into a landfill. I was brought into what is now International Paper. Recently was DS Smith. When I was there, it was called Interstate Container. Through all those acquisitions, they're now International Paper. But I was brought in as sort of a subject matter expert on the paper and coatings technology realm to help develop patents around removing paraffin wax from boxes. So I sort of got into sustainable packaging all the way from the mill side, working in recycled paper mills, into industrial enzymes that were meant to replace petrol-based process aids for the paper side, and then got brought into the box side sort of backwards, to not work really on boxes, but to work on coatings that were replacing waxes. And then from there, those patents issued, and I got into the graphic side. And when I was working on the graphic side, I was managing big accounts like Hershey's Chocolate, for example. And every year we would have a meeting where we would cover, all the business that we did and all of the cool stuff we did for them. And there would always be this question, tell us about your sustainability, right? And the answer was always, well, we have recycled paper mills and paper is recyclable and compostable. So that's our sustainability mission. And I always felt like, knowing the paper making process from tree stands to paper mills, so like from trees to reel, that there was room to do more. And so I started Givr Packaging as a as a place for companies that need these products, packaging, corrugated, folding carton, etc., to get what they needed at a cost neutral price compared to our competition, with the added benefit that we were going to take as our responsibility to offset some of the carbon emissions created during making those products. So Givr packaging was made to be a cost competitive place where you can buy the things you already use or already need with the added benefit of carbon offset. And so our initial mission was to replace the fibers used in the boxes we sell 2X. And we've since pivoted to a net neutral or net negative carbon footprint by using tree planting and the carbon sink that is the tree to create a net positive packaging option for whoever needs it.
Very interesting. So I want to unpack a couple things there. So paraffin wax, for people that are new to this, can you just tell us what that is? Just define it.
Yeah, so you have crude oil that gets refined into kerosene, diesel, gasoline, all of these things in a distillation column or cracking. And at the very bottom of that, or near the very bottom of that, you've got all the heavy stuff. And part of that heavy stuff is paraffin wax. It is a byproduct of the petrochemical industry, like asphalt, all of these things come out of the processing of crude oil.
Right.
And paraffin wax is aliphatic, so it basically hates water. So it's hydrophobic. It's these long chains of carbon that do not like water. And as a function of that, it is water repellent and can be used in many forms like cups, tons of different things. In fact, even some fruits are sprayed with it to get rid of or remove the ability for water to penetrate those. So that's added to paper or altered atmosphere boxes like fish, bananas, produce, all that stuff, to keep the boxes durable enough to withstand the cooling process in the moist transit environment, so that the boxes don't crumple, so that you don't get smashed bananas or smashed fish or smashed steak.
Got it.
The downside is all that wax has to be burned or landfilled, so the fiber is wasted. Many of it is virgin fiber, so it's just single pass fiber, which is not a good use.
Got it. Interesting. So it's basically ways to make the board or paper packaging more durable for like a 6-pack container in a refrigerator, so it doesn't disintegrate. Would that be paraffin wax, or is that a little bit different?
Well, so the 6-pack is usually folding carton. It's got aqueous coatings on it, which are a little bit different. Paraffin wax is really used for those situations like a broccoli box, right? That would be a cascaded box, which 40% of the mass of that box can be wax. You have to have something that protects the paper, because when that broccoli is packed in the field, the box is literally in the farm field filled with broccoli, put on a truck that shoots ice slurry down over the top of the box and the broccoli to cool everything down.
Got you.
And the boxes wouldn't survive unless they had some barrier for that water. And the old school way of doing that was just to coat those boxes with paraffin wax.
Okay. Got it. So Givr's model today, you have sustainable solutions, which we're going to get into, but you also, as a manufacturer, as a business, part of your vision is being sustainable as well, and that's through carbon offsets. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How you guys are structured? That sounds interesting.
Yeah, so I kind of leveraged my background in engineering to figure out the average carbon used in making a box per square foot. So in our industry, maybe you guys use per square foot to measure costs or whatever it is. So we figured out the carbon usage and fiber usage of a square foot based on a given size of box. And we index that against a fixed area and against a fixed weight. And so we used known metrics for what trees consume in terms of carbon dioxide to determine how much we would need to plant to bring that carbon footprint to zero and below zero. So when you buy a box, it is better for the environment having bought it from us than had you bought it from someone else, because of that carbon offset. And we do that all at market price or below. That's our sort of market positioning, is nobody's going to pay more for emission when it comes to a commodity like a box. It's just not going to happen.
So you found a way to overcome that common price objection, which is, I want to go sustainable, but I don't have the budget. you're saying you're going to buy this anyways. Just buy it from me because I have a sustainable angle.
That's exactly right.
Part of the Givr vision. I like it, man. So
You don't have to change anything.
got you. Maybe that's why you have some nice clients that are on board. I thought your client looks pretty good, man. So the top sustainable solutions, we can unpack a few of them, but give me maybe the top three, not Givr as a business, but the products you produce that have a sustainable angle, whether it's the plastic free or something else.
The biggest movement we've seen that we are offering is probably in the digital print space. So we've come from standard digital print, which uses UV inks, to the aqueous world. So in terms of moving that needle, we've gone to an all aqueous ink based digital printing platform. We've also done a ton of work just in structural design and material sourcing to move people out of things like bubble wrap, things like plastic, things like blister, and into products that give the same protection or same branding moments, but that are sustainable. So, like, we'll take windows out of folding carton, for example, because with the exception of like one biopolymer, windowing is like not a great place to find sustainability unless it's a blank window. But acetate windows, in my opinion, I don't feel good about selling those. We turn business away on that. So most of what we do is try to take a solution that has been offered by someone else and redesign it into materials that are SFI, uh, FSC, BPI, all of those certifications, so that the customer can get what they need anyways, protecting the product, but with the added benefit that they're no longer selling bubble wrap or acetate windows or things like that.
Got it. Talk to me about the issue with Windows. What do you see as the real problem with Windows? Why you would turn business away on those?
Really, it comes down to, do I feel comfortable selling 100,000 pieces that have 100,000 sheets of plastic in them? And I know the argument can be made that those windows are going to go into a repulper and that window is going to come out on a ragger and then that will be recycled. But if I can design away from that, that's what we're going to do. And if we can't, if a customer just says we have to have a window, I don't know of a solution that I would feel comfortable sleeping with, or sleeping knowing that I put that out there. And maybe I'm going to learn that there's an option out there that's great for that. But to date, I haven't found one, with the exception of Sway is a new biopolymer that is doing windowing and folding carton. And that is based on seaweed, which I have not gotten to use that in a production setting, but I have seen it. And it is, in my opinion, the best option to date, although it's still not as perfect as like standard acetate windows would be. There's a little bit of
As far as clarity.
clarity, yeah, and also the film, like, what's the word for it? It just, the surface characteristics are a little bit conspicuous. Like, that it's not standard acetate or plastic. It's got a feel and a look to it.
Got it. Got it. I've come across there's a CPG brand, a pasta brand, Jovial. I don't know if you've ever seen them, Jovial. They sell like sort of health conscious pastas would be my quick pitch of what they do. And they do a cellulose window, wood pulp as a replacement. It might be worth looking into. I met them at Expo West, and I knew of their product before then. I think they're really doing some cool things there. Talk to me about cruise foam. When we're talking about some specific solutions, I know you do folding cartons, corrugated boxes, but the cruise foam is something that maybe everyone in our audience might not have heard of. So explain, what is that? If you have a visual of it on hand,
Yeah.
that'd be great to look at it as well.
Yeah, so cruise foam is not our product in terms of manufacturing. We don't own the IP. It's owned by the company Cruise Foam, and it was started by he's either a master's degree or a PhD in material science in California, who was looking for a way to use food waste to repurpose it.
Mhm.
And so, through probably tons of research and effort, they created this foam, which, for your viewing audience, you
There
can
we
see
go.
it looks like EPS, but it's made out of 70% upcycled food waste, and that food waste is it's like crab shells and shrimp shells. It's like animal chitin that they are extruding in what I haven't seen the equipment, but what feels like the same kind of extrusion machines that are used to make like Cheetos, like
Oh wow,
puffed starch materials. That's
very
exactly what it feels like. Um, and it's past ASTM D6400 and D5338. It's BPI certified. It's FDA compliant, and through our testing with our customers, it has performed as well or better than the Renew liners, which are I think they're PLA starch extrusions wrapped in a poly film, but it performs as good or better over the 72-hour what is it? ISTA 7, I think it's ISTA 7E test that tells you like this product is going to stay at this temperature for this long.
Uh-huh.
And it works great. And we're working on, in fact, actually yesterday, we're working on probably the biggest opportunity that sounds like it's going to happen to replace a ton of that Renew liner. And I don't like the Renew liner primarily because of the poly liner on it.
Tell me a little bit about Renew Liner, and let's just go. What is EPS, just for the beginners in the crowd, so that they understand the terminology, and then tell me about Renew Liner a little bit, and then I have a few more questions about the cruise foam.
Sure. EPS, it's either extruded or expanded. I think it's expanded polystyrene, which is a petrochemical product that is trademarked as styrofoam.
Styrofoam, right?
Tool firm, yeah.
The same thing.
Right.
Okay.
When you run your finger over it, it makes 10,000 little balls that like never go anywhere. You can find them on every lake shore, everywhere.
That's a pretty bad one. Yep.
Yeah, that is what this is intended to replace, and it does from a mechanical and a thermal and a shock protection standpoint as good or better. It's used for block and brace and refrigeration. It's used all over the place.
Very cool. And then what was the other one you were mentioning that you were replacing with the cruise foam? Tell me about that one a little bit.
Renew liner, that is a trade name for a series of products that used to be called green cell foam. In fact, it may still be called green cell foam. That's inside of a poly like bag. I don't have an example of it, but it's everywhere. A lot of the direct to consumer food companies are using it. And I don't have anything against the company. I just don't like the idea of selling that sort of poly bag wrapped around what is a sustainable material, because why? Right.
Right. Right.
And so this stuff does a great job of doing everything right without the poly.
Awesome. And I think what you're pointing out is just a difference of opinion. And I think as long as we present respectfully different opinions, that's part of how we're going to come up with great ideas. So I appreciate the way that you're pointing out what you're passionate about and saying it, not being afraid to say it, but still doing it in a respectful way. I do appreciate that. So I think you've touched on a lot of the high level points, but for those people that are vetting options, Jeremy's really gone through what the option is. I always try to look at what is it actually. And we talked about a food waste product, crabs and different crustaceans. Am I hearing this?
I think so. I'm pretty sure right there.
You can tell I'm not a science guy like you, but and then what's the proof? Jeremy had plenty of certifications to back it up, not just making blind claims. And then how does it perform? It performs equal or at least comparable to the incumbent. And then where is it currently succeeding? Applications it's working. I think where it's succeeding now could sort of be your shortcut as a brand. If you're on a limited budget, limited time, where is it working now? And that could give you insights on which solutions you should implement. So can you just say one more time quick, what applications are currently happening right now successfully with cruise foam? What products are being used?
Yeah, so I'll give you the big one. Amazon is using it, at least in limited capacity.
I've never heard of that. What do they do?
They're a small company. They sell like books or something online. You can
There's
Google
about 30 packages outside right here. So yeah.
And there's some direct to consumer companies that are using it, like Wild Idea Buffalo. That's like a direct to consumer meat company. That's for the food side. Real Good Fish is another one. And then there's some block and brace companies that are using it, meaning just for structure, not for insulation.
So it's
Alibi Interiors.
Structure to protect the product. Like in the Amazon application, is it more like trying to preserve food products in shipment, or is it more trying to pad and cushion fragile products as they are shipped?
The specifics of that you'll have to refer to Cruise Foam.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't want to undersell it or oversell it as it's being
Okay.
used in Amazon, but the fact that they're using it is like a big feather in their cap.
Right. They vetted it. Amazon, I know, personally very much vets everything.
Right.
Very much. That's definitely a major pillar of credibility. So let's
Absolutely.
let's zoom out a little bit. Because I'm curious, a guy that's been in this business, how long have you been in the packaging space? If you take your paper experience to today, how many years are we looking at roughly?
It'll be 23 years in September.
All right. So this is a guy, 22 years, almost 23 years. He's been around the block a little bit. So where do you see sustainable packaging going in the next 5 years? I think things are accelerating with EPR laws and just general awareness of sustainability. It's more in people's minds. Where do you see it going in the next 5 years? And what are some of the gaps you see that collectively members of our audience, different entrepreneurs might want to help us fill?
Yeah, I've seen this for so many years since I've just kind of worked in it directly or indirectly, the sustainable packaging side. I think you're seeing access to sustainable options become broader. You're
Mhm.
seeing prices come down, and you're seeing the enthusiasm around using those products grow. And for the first time in like the last 18 months, I've seen, and this is on the wax replacement side, um, replacing paraffin wax. I've seen customers that are saying, we don't want paraffin, period. We want sustainable wax alternative products. So that's something I haven't seen in the 22 years I've been doing this. Usually it has been, we have this product that is sustainable. We will do what we can to get the price as close as possible. How do you feel about it? And usually it is, if you can make the price at parity, we'll give it a try.
Right.
Now it is, we're willing to pay a premium, albeit not a huge one,
Mhm.
for this because we know how to sell the value of it to our end market. That is growing. I would say it's still rare where customers will pay more for it. And I
Mhm.
don't think that needs to be the positioning of any of these products. I think it needs to be cost neutral. Um, but I think those are the things that you're starting to see, the grassroots enthusiasm across the board, market accessibility, and the prices becoming more competitive.
Great. I think that's very much in line with what a lot of people say, as far as where we're at. And maybe it's, oh, I'll pay 10% more, but no more than that. But there's also a spectrum of people that really are using sustainable packaging as a pillar of their positioning. And we know that people buy for emotional reasons. That's how brands are built. And you can connect with people's values using sustainable packaging. So I think the future is looking very good for the industry. Have you seen any innovations? I know you mentioned Sway, like I've seen in different places. They have whoever does Sway's marketing and PR is
It's
doing a great
amazing.
job. So the word's getting out, and I hear good things about the product, although I haven't looked at it too closely. But any innovations besides Sway, or if you want to talk more about Sway, that have really caught your eye as a guy with almost 23 years experience, you can probably sniff out what's the real deal versus maybe greenwashing. What's catching your eye?
I think I talked about Cruise enough. There's a lot of bubble wrap replacements that have come on the scene in like the last 18 months.
Okay.
3M has a few things. I forget what it's called, but it's like it's called Scotch Wrap or Scotch Protect. It's
Okay.
effectively a liner board that has been slit so that it accordions out and
Okay.
gives you Z directional thickness. So instead of it being a paper, it kind of opens up like that and gives you that cushion. That comes on a roll and it stretches and you can wrap it. That's really cool. I've seen paper-based pallet banding, which is pretty interesting. Um,
Banding. Tell me about that
yeah,
a little bit.
I don't know too much about it, but it is
Mhm.
apparently a drop-in for poly banding that can be heat sealed just like poly banding.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know that it's made domestically yet. Honestly, I just saw it on LinkedIn a couple days ago, and I was trying to dig it up before this call, but I didn't. So that's another one. And then the stretch wrap replacement, 3M again has a product that is a stretch wrap replacement that is paper. It is,
Wow.
to me, it feels like I'm going to say this, they're away from home towels. So like restroom towels that are a little bit thicker,
Okay.
um, paper towels that are a little bit thicker, but it's got some stretch, but it also has a liner or a treatment on the back that makes it somewhat sticky. So it's probably some sort of acrylic coating that sticks to itself, and you can stretch wrap pallets with it. And it's supposed to be as effective as stretch wrap without the plastic. So
Got
those
it.
are a few things that I'm excited about. And I think they're going to come into the same problems where it's, you get early adopters that will pay more for it. And then once it becomes mainstream, everyone's going to switch to it because they just don't want to deal with the plastic.
Right, right. So, we're gonna wrap up here in a couple minutes. This has been a great episode. Thanks for sharing everything you have. So, our goal in the podcast is to move beyond the buzzwords, right? Sustainable, green, eco-friendly. I'm with the right guy. He says I hate the word sustainable. So, not even against the word sustainable, but how do we move beyond just talking to actually making an impact? So, what's a common myth or misconception about sustainable packaging that you wish more people understood, whether it's about composting, recyclable, what is actually sustainable? And feel free to be opinionated. Like we say, different opinions is what makes the world go round. So, what's a myth that you want to sort of talk about that you think could help educate our audience?
The thing that I think most people hear is plastic is recyclable, which
Mhm.
technically is true. What I find troubling about that is when you stop there, you give people a false sense of comfort because in reality, while so much of that plastic can be recycled, high density polyethylene, polyethylene terephthalate, all of these polymers can be recycled. Something like 7% are actually recycled. So out
Mhm.
of every 100 pounds of plastic that are made, 7% of those 7 pounds are actually recycled. And the other 93 end up in the ocean, end up in landfill. They end up somewhere that is not recycled.
Mhm.
So people will hear plastic is recyclable and then they will get over that emotional hurdle of using plastic. But the functional reality is most plastic is never recycled. It simply
Mhm.
isn't. So
Mhm.
I think people need to realize like when you're choosing plastic, there needs to be a second thought of like, what is the life of this plastic? Is it going to be recycled? Is it
Mhm.
something that will for sure get collected and then reused? Or am I just resting on the fact that the blanket statement plastic is recyclable to get over the emotional hurdle of, you know, putting straw in a turtle's nose?
Right, right. No one likes that straw in the turtle's nose. So what do you make of a follow-up on that? What do you make of the, argument? And again, the plastics industry is trying to defend their product, but they do have some good points that I think have some merit. Different plastics have different recycling rates. So if you choose a non-recyclable plastic or one without high demand, you're going to be doing more damage. But if you choose something like clear PET, the recycling rates are much better and consumers are a bit more responsible. And if infrastructure improves, plastic could be a good future. It has lower carbon emissions. Plastic could be the answer. This is actually a very popular opinion. And I know someone like yourself probably disagrees with it, but do you give them any credit for this argument? And how do you process that when you hear it? Do you think they're just trying to defend their product, or do you think there's merit to their statement that we should, consider?
I'll say this, and then I'll give an example. The market is ultimately going to be the arbiter of what brands do, right?
Right.
If
Good
people
point.
stop caring about plastic, it's going to get made because it's cheap, it's available, and it works, right? It's amazingly versatile in its use case. But if people start to push back on that, you will find that it gives traction to all the other brands creating alternatives.
Mhm.
And here's an example. Unilever in 2019 or 2018 said they were going to replace all of their plastic with, or 25% of their plastic with PCR, the plastic. So
Mhm.
post-consumer recycled plastic. They ended up downgrading that to 22% because that's what they did to date. So they didn't hit their metric. I
Okay.
sat on a panel with a vice president from Unilever at Expo West in 2018 before it was shut down for COVID. The following year,
Mhm.
or was it might have been 2019, whatever the Expo West before COVID was.
Pre-COVID, probably 19.
And I said, guys, what if you guys adopted a model that we've taken? What if Unilever, for every pound they make, pulled one out of the ocean? We wouldn't have ocean plastic in 10 years. And then Unilever would literally own the PCR market. They would have all this PCR material, and then it would be effectively free from a material cost, but there'd be collection costs in it. So I think they can do it. Ultimately, they have shareholder value to hold them account. But I think there's always going to be plastic. Don't get me wrong. I think the medical industry is the best use case for plastic, hands down.
Right.
But for things that, cans, bottle versus can, it's pretty clear to me that you could use a can, Liquid Death, for example. They're worth $1 billion now, and their entire model was just getting rid of the plastic in the plastic bottle and putting it in a can. So
right. How much do you think their success was the sustainability crowd that pushed it forward as a plastic free versus just like, I haven't looked at their story too much. It's obviously incredible, but how much do you think was sustainability? Have you tracked that as opposed to just having very catchy branding and being different? What do you think really drove their success? Have you looked at their story?
I think in the beginning, being differentiated as water in a can helped them gain traction in markets that would not have given them a second look if they were in plastic. They leveraged that to get eyeballs that they could then bring to bear their insanely good marketing channel. Their marketing team, amazing. In fact, the CEO of Liquid Death was a marketing guy at Coke, and he decided to use the entirely counter marketing technique to launch their brand, and it worked. But if they weren't in a can, they would have never gotten on 10 shelves if they were in a bottle.
It's very true. I've seen stories. I had this guy, Harrison Holditch, I believe it's how to pronounce his last name, from Half Shell Vodka. He's another Floridian, and he tells the story how he does his vodka in a paper bottle. I believe it's Frugal Back, and he said the doors opened when I moved to sustainable packaging. So this is why I like to share these stories with the podcast. It's not just theory. You have stories of people making more money, making their dreams come true, driving shareholder value as a result of sustainable packaging. It's not just about doing what's right. Obviously, that's a big part of why we all do this as well. But those stories help push the industry forward. So, Jeremy, thanks so much for being on the show. For the listeners who want to learn more about Givr and all the great things you're up to, where should they go?
Our website is givrpack, givrpack.com. You can find us on Instagram at Givrpack, LinkedIn at Givrpack, Facebook. My personal Instagram is a mix of packaging and other stuff, mostly rugby and jiu-jitsu. That's Box Builder. None of these have an E in them. So it's Givr, Givr, Box Builder with no E. Just reach out. We're everywhere all the time. So we're easy to get a hold of.
All right, Jeremy. Thanks so much. Jiu-jitsu as well, right? If they don't go sustainable, they might have to go to the dojo with you. There you go. So thanks for being on. Again, move beyond buzzwords, guys, to actually making an impact, even if it's small. Take action now. Jeremy, thanks again for being here.
Yep. Thank you.